Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel for an extemporaneous ramblings of a madman, unscripted, unrehearsed, not sponsored, produced, and broadcast by myself and Mrs. Maltby, who's here doing crafts behind me. Today's not necessarily as much a news discussion as it is a journey back in time machine history. Oftentimes I will use coinage that I have to present things like this. However, I didn't want to get distracted in handling the coins, having you guys get distracted in looking at the coins. So I want to really read through this. I pulled up some good history based on, the title, The Edict of Maximum Prices. Should give you a clue what we're going to talk about. I do have really good, authentic examples of much, if not every coin we're going to discuss today. So I will follow this up with those coins in a live using my phone and the camera on it, because that's really the only way that I know how to get a live image of coins to you guys, and it works out pretty well. So we will eventually showcase many of the coins that we discuss in this topic today. Why am I talking about this? Oftentimes we've talked about the economic situation that preceded the fall and the collapse of Rome, the devaluation, debasement of their currency, and what it ended up causing down the road. Of course, they didn't really have a whole lot of history to look back on to think, we shouldn't do this because, so-and-so tried it and it failed. I don't know what our excuse is going to be, the empires of today, because they're going to do a lot of the same things, and they already pretty much are. They're going to blame the merchants, the workers, the people, the plebes, and of course they will try to come up with their own edict of maximum prices. Don't put it by them. I can assure you right now, if the geriatric kleptomaniac in office and his team had it in their abilities, they would do these right now. I mean, we already do things similar. We have today the edict of, what's the moratorium now? The eviction moratorium.
Oh, yeah.
The edict of eviction moratoriums. The edict of rent suspension. The edict of your mortgage suspension. I mean, there are edicts passed. There is massive empire intrusion, because that's what we are, an empire, not a republic or democracy. Intrusion into the free marketplace and into private dealings and contracts. Absolutely. And this is kind of Rome doing that. Let's take a look at it. I've got a bunch of stuff pulled up. This is an actual tablet. A lot of it was written in Greek. Some of you might be saying, hey, that's not Roman, that's Greek. They did write a lot of these tablets in Greek. And I'm just going to go to the first page I've got pulled up on this, which is right here. And I might have to center it for you guys to be able to see it and read along with me if you so choose. Some of you just like to listen to that droning, mundane voice of mine. And that's fine. You're more than welcome to let me do the reading for you. But for those of you who might want to tune in and read alongside me, go for it. I've got this here pulled up. It's not going to fit the screen perfectly, but it's as good as you're going to get here with my limited technological acumen. The Edict on Maximum Prices. This is the piece from Wikipedia, and then we're going to go to the actual readings on it. Latin, Edictum de Praetus Rerum Venalium, the edict concerning the sale price of goods, is what that means. Also known as the Edict on Prices or the Edict of Diocletian. It was issued in 301 AD. So this is a late part of the Roman Empire. The economy's in shambles. As you can see to the right here, there's a section of the tablet. This is a piece of the edict in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. The edict was probably issued from Antioch or Alexandria and was set up in inscriptions in Greek and Latin. So there was no excuse, you little peasant, you should be able to read it. It now exists only in fragments found mainly in the eastern part of the empire, where Diocletian ruled. However, the reconstructed fragments have been sufficient to estimate many prices for goods and services for historical economists. Although the edict attempts to set maximum prices, not fixed ones. So this is as much as you can charge for this particular goods or service. The Edict on Maximum Prices is still the longest surviving piece of legislation from the period of the Tetrarchy. The edict was criticized by Lactantius, a rhetorician from Nicomedia, who blamed the emperors for the inflation and told of fighting and bloodshed that erupted from price tampering. What does that sound like? Inflation, and then fighting began and bloodshed from the government intrusion, the empire intrusion, their tampering of prices. Now, what an interesting word. You don't hear a lot of these descriptions for people who are critical of the state. Things like, obviously it comes from the word rhetorical or rhetoric, a rhetorician. That's a nice little label. Can I be labeled that? A rhetorician? Can I have that, Mrs. Maltby?
What's that?
I want to have this label that Lactantius had.
I'm sorry, I'm making
a rhetorician. She's making
catnip
catnip toys. All right, no more disruptions. By the end of Diocletian's reign in 305, the edict was, for all practical purposes, ignored. Perfect. That's what you do. Everybody, you want to get by. You want to make things better. Ignore the state. Ignore the empire. You want the best. I saw this the other day. The best way to increase your immunity and prevent the contraction of the Delta variant is to just put in earplugs. If you put in earplugs, COVID goes away. Now, the edict was, for all practical purposes, ignored by 305. The Roman economy as a whole was not substantively stabilized until Constantine's coinage reforms in the 310s. So, again, it wasn't stabilized until the 310s. The price controls did not fix it. Now, during the crisis of the 3rd century, Roman coinage had been greatly debased. We've covered this at length on this channel. There's numerous videos you can go back to and read and look at about the debasement and the devaluation of Roman coinage, the subsequent destruction of their economy, the seizing up of merchants and trade. I think this is going to touch on that a little bit. But as you can see, by the 3rd century, it had been greatly debased. Numerous emperors and usurpers who minted their own coins, causing that. Using base metals to reduce the underlying metallic value of coins used to pay soldiers and public officials. What that means is they were reducing the amount of silver, mainly, in the coinage, such as the denarius, or in the golds like the solidus and those types of the gold coinage. They were diluting it. They were putting in crap or trash metals to reduce the amount of precious metal that was in the coin.
That's never happened before in America.
And as you can see in the United States, we pulled gold from circulation, 1933, silver from circulation, 1964, and so on. So it's been done before. Now, earlier in his reign, as well as in 301, around the same time as the Edict on Prices, Diocletian issued currency decrees, which attempted to reform the system of taxation and to stabilize the coinage. So he tried to do some things, just taxation laws, stabilizing the coinage. Pay attention to the United States and some of the laws and edicts. They don't really call them that anymore, but that's what they are. These executive orders and such. We've got this big infrastructure bill coming out, the human infrastructure bill. You've got all kinds of relief packages and things flowing out of Congress, the seat of the empire, and the executive branch there under Biden and such also, that does a lot of these very same things. Price controls, taxation, taxing new industries, taxing this, taxing that, trying to stabilize the currency, this bizarre relationship with the Treasury and the Fed, all of their interventions in the marketplace. This is happening today. Now, it is difficult to know exactly how the coinage was changed, as the values and even the names of the coins are often unknown or have been lost in the historical record. The Roman Empire was awash with other coins from outside of the empire, especially in the Mediterranean. The implied coinage change over time was at least a decade. Although the decree was nominally successful for a short time after it was imposed, market forces led to more and more of the decree being disregarded and reinterpreted over time. In the Edict of Diocletian, it was mentioned that the wine from Picenum, or Picenum, however you pronounce that, was considered the most expensive wine, together with Falerno. Vinum Hadrianum was produced in Picenum, or Picenum, in the city of Hatria, or Hadria, the old city of Atri. Now, mechanics. The full mechanics of the decree have been lost. No full decree has been found, as it exists only in fragments. However, enough of the decree's text is known for the following to be understood to be true. All the coins in the decree and the edict were valued according to the denarius, which Diocletian hoped to replace with a new system based on the silver argentius and its fractions. Although some, and those are the coins, you've seen denarius and real denariuses on this channel, and I have some argentius coins that I will show you later on. So this new system based on the silver argentius and its fractions, although some modern writers call this the denarius communis. This phrase is a modern invention and is not found in any ancient text. The argentius seems to have been set at 100 denarii, and it was the silver washed numis was at 25 denarii. And what that means, when it says silver washed numis, that they would take a bronze coin and just essentially dip it in silver, and so it would become like silver plated, a silver wash. And those numis were 25 denarii, the argentius 100 denarii, and the bronze radiate was worth 4 or 5 denarii. The copper laureate was raised from 1 denarius to 2 denarii. The gold aureus was revalued at least 1,200 denarii. Although one document calls it a solidus, it was still heavier than the solidus introduced by Constantine a few years later. During the previous decades, the decreasing amount of silver in the bullion coins had fueled inflation. This inflation, which means they're increasing the money supply because they're diluting the value of the coinage and making more of them, this inflation is understood to be the reason the decree was issued. So they had rampant inflation. The empire, for lack of a better phrase, freaked out, panicked, came up with a decree to control prices, right? And there we have it. Thank you, Cryptic00, for the super chat. He said, fun fact, felons can own black powder firearms like revolvers. In case someone is on here and wants to protect themselves, yes, you can buy a muzzle-loading black powder revolver. I randomly found this out a few weeks ago. You can get them shipped to your door. That is absolutely true. Nice little curios and relics. Historical pieces. Very nice pieces of history. Mrs. Maltby herself enjoys the ownership of
a Walker.
A Walker. A 44 Walker, as a matter of fact, which was the most powerful handgun prior to the invention of the .357 Magnum. She has a nice Walker pistol. Back to Roman history, though. So the solidus, it was still heavier than the solidus introduced by Constantine a few years later. During the previous decades plural, the decreasing amount of silver in the coins had fueled inflation. This is an important point. The inflation growing in Rome, causing government to intrude on prices and on the free market. You will see this occur, and you can expect this to happen in the United States. This inflation is understood to be the reason this decree was issued. This is historical fact, and I'm reading this for a second time on purpose because I think it's very important to reiterate it. Issues of economic system feedback were not well understood at the time. So I wonder what the excuse will be today, because they understand these things, or they should. The first 2/3 of the edict doubled the value of the copper and bullion coins and set the death penalty. Here you go. They didn't mess around back then. It set the death penalty. Death. You are sentenced to death for violating the edict on maximum prices. I can wonder how they would declare that. The death penalty for profiteers and speculators. Think of that. Death penalty for profiteers and speculators. Imagine if they raided you because you were on Robinhood or doing currency trades in the future, or buying crypto or gold, and they put you in the cage or they killed you. So they would today. Believe me. The thing is, today, they love the fact that Rome got away with this, and all governments and all empires are the same. They're looking for ways of doing this today. And the IRS is no different than the thugs of Rome who would come to your house and beat you to death for, of course, violating the edict on maximum prices. So they had the death penalty for the profiteers and speculators who were blamed for the inflation. Not the government, not the empire diluting the currency. It was them that was to blame. Remember what I told you the other day? Blame the Fed and wait for the Fed to blame you, because they will. The government and the Fed and the Treasury will eventually start blaming private corporations. They'll start blaming the people. This is just like Rome. This is why I'm reading this. This is why you cannot ignore this part of history. It is imperative to understand this edict on maximum prices, the edict of maximum prices, because these very same attitudes, these very same reactions are going to occur here in the United States over 2,000 years later. They're going to blame the inflation on everyone but the actual individuals and institutions that caused it.
What's worse is that today they can spread false information much more openly and freely than they did back then and convince way more people that it's okay what they're doing.
Oh yes, imagine the power of Diocletian had he his own arm of CNN and the internet, and he controlled all communication forms. If the Romans had Twitter and all these social media things, can you imagine what they would have done with it? Imagine what they would have done if they were willing to give you the death penalty.
Oh my God.
Now, who are blamed for the inflation and who are compared to the barbarian tribes attacking the empire. That's how, that is the light that the empire put them. So they did have some propaganda because they were blaming these profiteers and speculators, anyone who made money off these currency changes. And I'm also assuming the Gresham's law of economics was taking place. This is why we find the hoards of Roman silver and gold. People were hoarding metal out of circulation, and I would imagine that some of them were profiting from it, some of them were speculating on it. And of course, they were blamed by the empire and compared to what? The barbarian tribes attacking. You're terrorists, just like today. Just like today, they blame you, and they, gold's only used by terrorists and criminals, and crypto's only used by terrorists and criminals. You got to use the U.S. dollar. Now, the merchants were forbidden to take their goods elsewhere and charge a higher price. So no matter what the free market did, you couldn't take your goods anywhere else and sell them for a higher price. You were forbidden by the empire. And transport costs could not be used as an excuse to raise prices. So the government, the empire, which was the government at the time, told you the maximum price you could charge, and it didn't matter what you thought or said. The last third of the edict, divided into 32 sections, imposed price ceilings, a list of maxima for well over 1,000 products. These products included various food items: beef, grain, wine, beer, sausages, etc., clothing, shoes, cloaks, etc., freight charges for sea, travel, and weekly wages. Weekly wages. The highest limit was on 1 pound of purple dyed silk, which was set at 150,000 denarii. The price of a lion was set at the same price, 150,000 denarii. The outcome? The edict was counterproductive and deepened the existing crisis, jeopardizing the Roman economy even further. Diocletian's mass minting of coins of low metallic value. This is so important, ladies and gentlemen. Please listen to this. I'm going to read this part again. Diocletian's mass minting of coins of low metallic value, aka inflation, continued to increase inflation, and the maximum prices in the edict were apparently too low. Merchants either stopped producing goods. Why would you? If you couldn't make a profit, why would you produce goods? They stopped producing goods, sold their goods illegally, or they just used barter, which means they came up with alternative methods of currency and change and trade. Hey, I'll give you this, you give me that, and they just bartered and traded outside of the eyes of the government. Which, that's, again, one of the reasons you have to stockpile silver and gold, because when they collapse the economy, you might be thrust into barter, right? The edict tended to disrupt trade and commerce. That's what government does. That's what empires do. Whenever the government intrudes into the marketplace, whenever it tries to pass laws like minimum wage laws or come up with unemployment benefits and order things about and direct everybody there is, direct business and trade, commerce, everything. Intervene on contracts. This is what happens. It disrupts trade and commerce, especially among the merchants. It is safe to assume that a black market economy evolved out of the edict, at least between merchants. Sometimes entire towns could no longer afford to produce trade goods. So essentially the law shut down the entire economy of certain villages and towns or regions. Because the edict also set limits on wages, those who had fixed salaries, especially soldiers, found that their money was increasingly worthless, as the artificial prices did not reflect actual costs. So what's a soldier going to do? You have no real true allegiance to Rome. Maybe you signed up for service out of Gaul or some other region. And, you're not really Roman by genetics any longer, and you kind of thought it was a good idea at the time. All of a sudden, the pay they're giving you isn't worth anything. You quit. You go AWOL. You leave. So I would guess, and I think most historians would agree, that not only did it cripple the economic backdrop for Rome, but it damaged them militarily in their defenses. Because, of course, soldiers would be encouraged to walk off the job because they weren't getting paid anymore. Now, down below here, we see this chart for coinage. Each cell represents the ratio of the coin in the column to the coin in the row. Thus, 1,000 denarii were worth 1 solidus. So here's 1 solidus worth 1,000 denarii, or denarius. And then you've got the argentius was worth 1/10 of a solidus, or 100 denarii. So Diocletian tried to just dictate what these values would be on these currencies, regardless of their metallic value and what people had been used to and what the market kind of determined beforehand. And it did not work. You can see down here, denarius was worth 1/1000th of a solidus. And it was worth, if you got the 1/100th of an argentius. And this correlates to this here. So the chart works both ways. You can look at it there. But interesting piece there. Now I've got, here's the argentius coin. I want to show you this. And I do have one of these. And believe me, I will show it to you. This was a silver coin produced by the Roman Empire from the time of Diocletian's coinage from AD 294 to about 310 AD. Similar in weight and fineness to the denarius. Time of Nero, the coin was produced as a theoretical weight of 1/96th of a Roman pound, or 3 grams, as indicated by the Roman numeral XCVI on the coin's reverse. Argentius, meaning of silver in Latin, was first used in Pliny's Natural History in the phrase Argentius numis, or silver coin. The 4th century historian Ammianus uses the same phrase. However, there is no indication that this is the official name for a denomination. The Historia Augusta uses the phrase to refer to several fictitious coins. And I'll take you to a closer look on this coin here. Let's bring it up. There you go. You can see the argentius there. And of course, similar in weight to the denarius of Nero in fineness and purity. However, he gave it a different valuation. That's the big thing here. The edict gave these coins different valuations than the people were used to. Weighed about 3 grams, as we just read.
Was it temporary?
I'm sure it was temporary in the mind of Diocletian. Now here is another piece. This is, I believe, a translation of the edict. It was issued between November 20th and 10th. And of December on the year 301 AD, the price edict gave maximum prices for more than 1,200 products, raw materials, labor and services, transport animals, and even slaves. Prices range from 1 denarius communis for fresh green animal fodder to 150,000 denarii for a male lion or a purple dyed silk, as we just read. The price edict and the monetary edict issued some months before were an attempt to check inflation. The edict came to us through fragments of the inscriptions on stone slabs. We've seen these. Here you can see pictures of it now. I'm going to go to some of the translation. There's the Numis Maximanius from the Heraclea Mint right there. This is an online translation. It's quite long, and we're not going to read through all of it. I just wanted to show you there's volumes of information on this. Absolutely volumes. And again, this is one of the oldest pieces of legislation that still exists. And as you can see, here's the Roman weights and measures are partly still under discussion. There's some debate about, what they might have been exactly. It's been calculated in the past between 322 and 329 grams. That's a Roman pound, about 322 to 329 grams, for instance. Will conform to one source, Laufer, 1971, pages 54 and 55. Here's weights and units of capacity. You can see them here. Here they are in Roman pounds or grams and liters. But again, very good reference piece for economists to understand exactly, what this stuff was going for back then. Because, I like to just look at it and find out what it translates into silver. Now, here is the actual translation. The Emperor Caesar Gaius Aurelius Valerius Diocletian, dutifully blessed, unconquered Augustus, chief priest of the Roman state religion, conqueror of the Germans, 6 times conqueror of the Sarmatians, 4 times conqueror of the Persians, 2 times, and conqueror of the Britons, conqueror of the Carpi, conqueror of the Armenians, conqueror of the Medes. You imagine if they introduced people today, like, this is President Biden. He likes ice cream. He spent 48 years doing nothing. I mean, how would you introduce? Look at the conqueror of the Armenians, conqueror of the Medes, conqueror of the Adiabini, holding tribunician power for the 18th year, 7 times consul, 18 times acclaimed emperor, father of our country, proconsul, and the emperor Caesar Marcus Aurelius Valerius Maximinian. Dutifully blessed. It's incredible. Look at this, is the introduction. I should read it. Should I read it in my emperor voice? Introduction voice?
Actually, what are you thinking?
Okay. Dutifully blessed, unconquered Augustus, chief priest of the Roman state religion, conqueror of the Germans 5 times, conqueror of the Sarmatians 4 times, conqueror of the Persians. Oh, those are the best. Let's look at all the introductions are here. They're all great, right? We may thank the good fortune of our state as well as the immortal gods on remembering the wars we have waged successfully. I'm just reading excerpts from this. Oh, goodness. You'll get me banned.
I'm making catnip toys. Leave me alone. The
condition of the world has been placed tranquil in the lap of the deepest quiet and the peace towards good men. So, there's a lot of this, a lot of that. Of course, they got to make the masses think that they're gods and they're deities and they're above reproach. Of course, toward remedies, therefore, we have long been desired in the necessity of things. We spring into action. We care not for complaints. Unprincipled people perceived our so many years' silence as giving a lesson in restraint, but nevertheless refused to comply. Not even among them may the intervention of our cure be thought too trivial or too cheap on the grounds it was untimely and superfluous. Thank you, Cryptic00, my friend, for the super chat. So again, lots of government edict, lots of government words. Just, the emperor. Let's see. Cryptic, you wrote a little note with that. Let me see it here. Popping up. If you don't own gold or silver, then you're long government. Yeah, exactly. If you don't own gold and silver, all it means is you have undying, blind faith in the state, in people like this that believe they're gods and conquerors. Because they're the same. Nancy Pelosi is the same way. She's exactly the same as these people. She stands up there like she's some empress. Disgusting. Her makeup just dripping off of her face. Gaping eyes. Oh my God. He's like a corpse. Like Tales from the Crypt. I'm going to read another part of this here. But now we ought to explain also the causes themselves. His necessity finally has been forced, our long displayed endurance to take steps. This reads just like the congressional things you hear today. Although it is difficult to unmask the greed raging in the whole world by special reasoning or rather act, nevertheless our establishment of remedy may be thought more just, since by some description and marks very immoderate men will be forced to recognize the ungoverned desires of their own minds. Therefore, who would not know that effrontery hijacks the public interest? Whatever way everyone's shared security demands, our armies be directed through villages or towns. On every route, effrontery goes to meet them with the spirit of thievery. Can you believe the words and the dramatics that these guys implore into this? It ratchets up the prices of things for sale, not fourfold or eightfold, but so much that the human tongue's reckoning cannot untangle what to call the accounting and the deed. In sum, meanwhile, by the purchase of one thing, a soldier is deprived of his bonus and his salary. He yields to the detestable profits of robbers all the tax the whole world pays to support the armies. He's shifting the blame on merchants and those who are trying to just essentially survive on the inflation that these emperors and their staff, their governing bodies, the Senate, created. By their own hand, our soldiers seem to give up the expectation. See how he's playing into the patriotism, the threats abroad, and how our poor soldiers, our poor Roman soldiers who are out there just trying to survive, and they're being robbed. Instead of just coming clean and go, yeah, sorry, we inflated the currency and destroyed the economy. It's our fault. Of course not. It's your fault. The merchants, the workers. This is clear, ladies and gentlemen. This is exactly the same script, the same psychology, the same psyop, the same efforts that are done today. Exactly the same. Don't be stupid. What are you, dumb? What are you, thick? You think things change? You really think that Congress is altruistic in any of their motives? You really think they care about you? Do you really genuinely think that Biden gives two shits about you? Come on, please. Don't be a fool.
President Biden conquered by the stairs.
Yeah, do me a favor. Go get yourself some gabagoo. All right? We have been moved by all these things that have been included above, rightly as we should, since human feeling itself seems to beg for relief. We have taken the position not that we must set prices of goods and services for sale, nor indeed would it be thought right, since meanwhile very many provinces rejoice in the blessing of desired low prices as if by some special condition of abundance. Thank you, one ugly man. He says, hit the like button. Please hit it. But we must set a limit. When some expensiveness should arise, the gods forbid it. The greed that could not be restrained, as if it ranged in fields spread over some limitless expanse, will be choked off by the limits of our statute and the boundaries of a moderating law. Therefore we decree that these prices, which are written in the text of the subjoined abstract indicates, be kept by the observance of our whole realm. Let all understand that license to exceed the same limits has been cut off in advance. As a result, in those places where profusion of goods should noticeably abound, the benefit of low prices, which is very much the object of our care and foresight, is not hindered, while greed checked in advance is restrained. They engraved this into tablets and spread this throughout the empire. For all the peasants, the plebes, and the serfs, the knaves, all the zombies, all the NPCs at the time. Believe me, if the Emperor Diocletian could have thought of COVID, he would have. And he would have told them, behold, the hills hold themselves a mysterious plague. I must, as your benevolent God, dictate to you things by which you must obey. Stay in your hovel. Do not go into the fields and harvest wheat. You must stay where thou art.
I mean, we have the names right this day, like Delta and Sigma or whatever.
Believe me, the Emperor would, if he could, con the people into mysterious threats to exercise power. He would love it. Come on, let's build a time machine. Go back and tell Diocletian all about the vid. He'd love it. Anyways, here you can see it. The prices being dictated and all the words and all the word soup. Let's look at this. Look at all the little prices here. What do we got? The quantity and the price. The quantity is in the left column, the description of it over here, and on the right you see the price in denarius communis. Spelt 1K mod. Let's go back up there. What's the K mod again? I got to find out what the... okay, here we go. The measurements. 1K. Okay. Castrensis modius, a K mod, is a Roman double bushel or 17,500 liters. comma liters. 17.5 liters. There you go. Roman double bushel, because they use the comma as a decimal. Just making sure we get our math right. But you can actually go through this. It's very interesting. Rye, millet. Look at all the prices they have records of. This is for the cereals. Millet, rye, barley, wheat, vetch, broad beans, lentils. Again, this is for 17.5, about a bushel. Lentils were about 100. Incredible. Look at all the mustard seed, mustard, poppy seed, vetch, hemp seed, alfalfa seed, hay seed, sesame, spelt, barley, rice, flax, kidney beans, lupins. Look at them. They had a pretty good diet back then. Oats. Look at all this. And then you had for wines. Here's the wines in the regions. Tells you how much the wines were going to cost. Oils. Look at all the prices here. Again, the measurements, the prices. Very incredible. These were the maximum prices, and of course he justified why. It was for security, for the soldiers. Remember, this was for the soldiers. You call yourself a patriot? Yes. Nick Brown, thank you for Nick Braun for the super chat. He says, govern me harder, Daddy. We need to be governed harder. We need more edicts. I wish they'd just come out and call them that. Today's edict on unemployment is thus. So let it be read and so let it be done. Emperor Josephus Bidenus the Maximus saith so.
No, it'd be like Josephus Bidemus retardus or something.
Oxides, tan. Here's the leather prices. Quite incredible. If you guys are interested, you can look through all of the prices on this. And I'm going to grab this link and put it down below for all of you so you can actually go through if you're curious and want to do the math and figure out exactly how much silver stuff cost back then, because you can do the math. You can figure out how many denarius, which was 3 grams in silver, and then you can figure out what the measurement was. So that's about 30 grams for 28 cubits of fir planks, 4 cubits in perimeter. So fir planks of wood. You can look up the wood prices there. Ash, beech, cypress, has all the wood stuff. It's incredible. Boxwood, poles and firewood, plant stakes, axles and wheels, seats and wagons, hay implements, sleeping wagon. What's a Roman sleeping wagon look like? Look, it's incredible. Brick walls, Judean plain glass cups and vessels, sewing needles, freight, charge for a full wagon, charge for one person, fodder, cushioning and reed tufts, cushioning of wool flocks, ink, reeds, military mantle, best quality as described in the Edictio, a shirt, cover, dyed covers, women's, look at all this stuff, clothing.
I agree with Jurigas de la Llagas.
What Jurigas de la Llagas?
He says there's too many extremists in here.
Well, there's a lot of extremists. We're extreme so many people. That's what we do. All these prices are here. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the edict from Diocletian. General laborers, here you got this. I'll put this link in there as well. This was another link that I found on it. So this is for a brick maker. For every 4 bricks in preparation of the clay, he got 2. And I'm guessing that was 2 of the denarius solinus, or the... so I just go by 3 grams of silver. So 6 grams of silver for that. If I'm, Roman denarii equivalent. So yeah, these are prices expressed in the Argentius because that's what Diocletian named it. And you can see how many denarii on the right side here. So a farm labor with maintenance, 25 denarii. A lime burner with maintenance, 50 denarii. Skilled laborers. A barber per customer for a barber, 2 denarii. So to go get your haircut, about 6 grams of silver for a haircut. What's 6 grams of silver today? Cabinet maker with maintenance, 50 denarii. Figure painters, these are all these laborers. Beautiful. Secretary, how much would a secretary make? 35 denarii. Notary for writing, petition, or a legal document, 10 denarii. And teachers in ancient Rome. A teacher in ancient Rome would have lived in the home of a wealthy patrician who would have provided the teacher with food and clothing and appropriate to the house. The teacher would not have had much spending money, but would have lived comfortably just the same. And these are the salaries in denarii per month per student. Okay, let's do the math on that. Help me out. E.W. Fisher, 89. Emperor Josephus Bidenus Minimus Intellectus. I love it. E.W. Fisher, 89. That's perfect. Josephus Bidenus Minimus Intellectus.
I hate that son of a bitch.
Now, so let's read. I want to know how this compares to teachers' salaries today. So help me, guys. Can you guys help me with the math? Someone break out a calculator.
Are we counting the teachers that have not gone to work since COVID?
They're out playing. Yeah,
Are those really teachers?
No. Remember, you're not really a teacher unless the student, the pupil's like over the 2nd grade.
Oh, yeah,
Kindergartners are just babysitters. If you're a kindergarten teacher, you're just playing. Hey, kids, go grab your blocks and do some finger. I mean, come on now. If I was a kindergarten teacher, they'd be learning Roman history right away. They'd be learning this stuff. Now, a teacher in ancient Rome. Let's see. This is, again, I need to know this. This is denarii per month per student. And remember, each denarii is approximately 3 grams of silver. So somebody, whether you're physics hypernova or somebody who's good with math, an elementary teacher would get 50 denarii per month per student. So let's say they lived in a house. They had, 3 kids. That's 150 denarii per month total. 150 times 3. Can you do the math? What's 3 times 150? Get your calculator on your phone.
Isn't it 450?
Lady. Yeah, 3.
Wait, what did you ask?
450.
Yeah.
450 grams of silver. 450 So someone do the math. What's 450 grams of silver right now worth? Come on now. Do I got to break out? Do I got to do this myself? I got to do this
Give
myself.
the people a chance.
I'll do it. I'll do it on Google. This is fun stuff. 450 grams to troy ounces. Come on. So 15 ounces of silver. Okay. And back then, remember, that silver had much more significant purchasing power than it does today. A tenth of an ounce was about a day's labor. So again, if this person's getting 14.5 ounces of silver as a teacher with all, the room and board was covered. They were living in a home with the patrician family. That's pretty significant. That's a pretty good amount of wealth for back then. I would think so. An arithmetic teacher is getting 75 denarii per month per student. And again, each denarii, 3 grams of silver. Do the math. A Greek or a Latin literature or geometry teacher, check this out, 200 denarii per month per student. So do the same thing. Patrician class family, you're the teacher, you teach the Greek and the Latin literature or geometry. You're in this home, they have 3 patricians' children. That's 3 times 200, that's 600 denarii. Each denarii weighs 3 grams. That's 1,800 grams of silver. Okay.
Did they get reparations after the fall of Constantinople?
Teacher of rhetoric, public speaking. That's what I would teach these children. Rhetoric, public speaking, child. We are in Rome. Act like a Roman. You're not a Gaul or a German.
Ew.
The teacher of rhetoric, or Slav, little Slavic peoples to the east of us. The little Slavic potato people.
Well, we didn't lose Constantinople.
Teacher of rhetoric and public speaking got paid $250 per student. So that person, again, same household, if there was 3 students, let's go with that. There's 750 denarii. A lot of math in there. A lot of significant silver for that person. Now let's go down here. Soldiers in ancient Rome. Soldiering was one of the best ways for a Roman male that could provide for his family. The base wage was low, not enough to live on. 4 times a year, a soldier received a donative greater than his annual base pay. Additionally, soldiers received an annual annona, a subsidy for grain purchases. The best soldiers hoped to be recruited to the Praetorian Guard, the soldiers who guarded the emperor. These soldiers were paid roughly 3 times the base wage of the average soldier and likely enjoyed many additional privileges as well. Soldiers had high expenses in their profession, but they still came out much better than the average citizen even after expenses. The soldiers were expected to pay for much of their own equipment, rations, and clothing. They even had to pay part of the cost of the burial for their fallen from their unit.
Oh, nobody would
Soldiers
get buried by
pay.
me.
The average soldier made around 1,800 denarii a year. Praetorian Guard annually 5,500 denarii.
So what you're saying, Junius, is these were the Fed boys back then?
Yeah, these were the troops, the boots on the ground. The annual grain annona, which they got once a year, was 600 denarii. The donative, which came 4 times a year, 2,500 denarii. Additionally, every soldier received a grain allotment of 30 modi of wheat per year. That would be worth 3,000 denarii. The total annual pay for an average Roman soldier was 15,400 denarii. And for a Praetorian Guard, 19,100 denarii. Compare that to a general laborer working 305 days a year, 7,625 denarii. And then, of course, here's all the soldiers' costs, sword, helmet, and axe, all of these things. How much was a sword back then? I'd like to know.
Free if you stole it from someone who you killed.
I want to see what a gladius would cost me. A polisher for a sword, 25. They don't really have it on there. They have his axe, a double axe, and a sword scabbard. And then, of course, food prices. Again, we saw those earlier, dictated by this. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, that is, again, the Edict on Maximum Prices. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. It's fun. It was a good little Roman discussion. And I will get these coins out. We're going to go through them and we're just going to look at the coins and handle them on video. And you can go back and refer to this video after the conclusion of that video or have it playing in the background. But I would like to go through this and show you guys these coins in person. Because again, I do have original and remarkable specimens thanks to a very good friend of the channel here that understands my passion for history, economics, and this story, this tale of humans using sound money, silver, and gold as the ultimate extinguishers of debt and payment. And so he has a passion for history and coinage as well, especially Rome, and allowed me to take possession and be a custodian of some of these wonderful Roman coins and pieces of history. Thank you, Kalna, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support and being part of this channel. Thanks to all of you for that. So in closing, there's one last look at this Argentius coin here. Thanks to Diocletian for giving us the material for today. It's almost like we're reporting on Roman news 2,000 years later. But again, look for it here. Look for it today. Look for things like this, please. I do this because it's important. It's an example. Yes, this was Rome. This was 2,000 years ago, the edict on maximum prices. Don't give me this, it can't happen here. Oh, that was then, this is now. Today's different. It's different today. We had the same thing. There's a reason the United States government, all of its institutions and halls, every single building looks like a Greek or a Roman temple. We treat it the same way. We treat it like it's a pantheon, like it's a collection of gods and deities. We worship these people. All of the columns that we have are the same.
That's not necessarily true anymore. Our buildings are going gay.
Yeah, the architectural design of Washington, D.C. is that of Rome. And so look for things like that with the empire and edicts just like this. Nancy Pelosi, Chucky Schumer, Biden, Kamala, she'll put one out there. They're going to come up with edicts. Pretty soon there's going to be the edict on forcible injections that thou shalt receive by the state. Think of that for a moment. Edictus injectius of covidius vaccinationis. That's coming.
It's already in place.
I'm going to take a few moments as we close and allow the audience to come up with edicts of their own. If everyone would be so kind as to just formulate your own little edict that you can see and envision those in the halls of government today forcing upon us. There's all kinds of things that they wish, The edictus turning in thy sordius, the edictus of the banishment of the Second Amendmentus, the edictus of relinquishing thy weapons.
While they come up with that, I'd like to read the Facebook status of one of my coworkers.
Oh, goodness.
That was posted just the other night.
Oh.
When I had posted something and triggered her greatly. And she goes, this is a news feed public status for all her friends and family and coworkers to see. She says, I'm sleeping in an effing mask because I work in home care. I don't know what that means because we don't work in home care. I can sleep, but I have to mask up because of you selfish effers. I'm done. That's it. No vaccine, you don't see my kids. I don't care who you are. Bitch, we don't want to see your kids or you. Sleep in your mask. Suffocate on it. Die.
There you go. Nobody cares.
See, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, breaking news for those of you that drive around in your car alone with a mask on, the new outside walking about your property and house and while you're outside of your vehicle seatbelts are now on the market. You can actually buy a seatbelt and wear it while you're out for a walk, while you're in your bed, anywhere. You don't have to be in your vehicle any longer to wear a seatbelt. There are companies now manufacturing seatbelts that you can wear 24 hours a day while you're walking everywhere, just in case. You'll always have your seatbelt on. So if you're one of the people that likes to wear a mask while you're in your vehicle alone, start looking for that product because, boom, you can get out of your car, keep your seatbelt on, and walk around with it. There you go. Wonderful. I'm looking at the news. Let's see, the Edictus Muzzle thy Facium, Edictus Mascus, Edictus Weaponus Registrationis. That's from Physics Hypernova. The last one was from
I like this one
the
from
Money
Ugly
Fork.
Man. Bidenus Consecuus my asses.
Yes. Darth Larper says, edict of chipping your asses. What else we got? Let's see.
Edictus 2030, thou shalt not eat of animal flesh without paying the tithe.
Yes, Edictus 2030. Yeah, you will eat bugs. Edictus 2030, thou shalt eateth bugs. Crayonus eatus, yes, pleases, the family silver. I may require a seatbelt to go to the mailbox, yes. Bidenus, Ananias, your precious Metallius. Kim Kardashian and Miley Cyrus wear their masks in their Teslas. I'm sure they do. There's going to be a crazy amount of orphans just because they were too young to get it. Everyone else in their family died. No, that's too bad.
She's referring to the vaccinations.
I saw an uptick in mask wearing here in Tulsa as well. Sheep will do anything that the bureaucracy tells them. Physics Hypernova says.
Adult variant.
I love it. Here it goes. Get ready for another lockdown and economic shutdown. Why aren't they talking
about what happened, what was it, in Minnesota or Massachusetts, where like 3/4 of the new COVID cases were only vaccinated people?
Yeah, 75% of the people in Boston that came up with new COVID cases were vaccinated.
Yeah.
75%.
But it's our fault, right?
It's my fault, yeah.
It's your fault. It's your fault.
It's my fault. I'm sorry I got an immune system. Sorry about that. I'm sorry that I've got an immune system and you don't. Because you nuked it with your mRNA invader, your spike protein. Get out of my face. Get out of my face, zombie guy. All right. Oh, man. I like you know who 3311 says, thou shalt worship at the altar of the ATF, FDA, EPA, DEA, CIA, FCC, NOAA, and finally ETC. Yes. Edictus Calfartus Banus. Yes, they'll ban the cow farts. Rodriguez de Leoragas. Edictus Environmentalis Controllus. Edictus Testosterone Cap. I like that count. They'll have to ban testosterone because it's toxic. Incredible. This is great.
How about that?
Oh, I like it. Maxwell Morris says, the final lockdown. That's great. The final lockdown. That's a great one. I like that, Max. That's perfect. Oh, my goodness. All right, my friends. This is it. This is Junius and Mrs. Maltby signing out. Thank you for tuning in on this weekend to learn about the Edictus Maximus Praesus.
Make sure you check out that Feminist Boy video on our community tab.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you really want to throw up, go check out the community tab. There's some videos on there you might want to check out. But thanks for all of you who are channel members. I see you. I know who you are. You've got a coin after your name. You guys are the best. Thanks for supporting the channel. Also, tremendous shout out and thank you to all of you who are Patreon members. Thank you for supporting this channel, being there, motivating this channel, keeping the content alive, sharing the links, hitting the like, and motivating others and alerting them of this channel's presence and getting them to come here and check it out. All of you have a good rest of your night and take care of yourselves.